Okay, so let's just say you downloaded Blender and you've opened it and you've tried to do this. This is everybody. So when you open it, you're going to get this screen. You can just click off, or you can go to New General. You get these things, and most people just delete them if I'm honest. So you select them all, you just press delete, and you start from refresh because you don't really need the camera and the lighting just yet for this. So to do some basic modeling, there's a few things you need to know first. The top right hand corner, that's a toggle. It lets you select your faces. It normally starts off as being on the Y minus bit closest to you. So let's just set it back up to that. Now, as we're doing bits, there's going to be a little mouse in the bottom left hand corner. Let me just turn that on. And it's going to allow you to see which buttons I press as I go along. So if I speak too fast or you don't want sound on, you can kind of see what's going on. It's just there. You can see I click the middle button, click the left one. It's how it works. To change the angle of what you're looking at, you simply hold down the middle button and then move your mouse. To add something back in, you're just going to press Shift A, and we're going to go to cube because that's the basic thing that most people use. It's the thing we had in the beginning that we deleted. I don't know why people do it, but it seems to be a thing, and the way I learned was that, so it's just habit. So we get a cube, it's massive, it's like 2 meters by 2 meters. So we're going to make it a lot smaller by just pressing S and then moving it with our mouse. You can scroll in and out, that will make the screen bigger, so you don't need to worry about that. Now with this, you can move your object around your screen by holding Shift and the middle mouse button and moving it around. It will change the position if you want to. So we're going to make it bigger. Now if we press S again, we're just going to make the whole thing bigger. But if you press Z, you'll make it bigger only on the Z axis, which is the vertical one, which is great because now we have a good piece of timber, which would be great for hitting people on the head or fighting in a war if they didn't have swords. But we're trying to make a sword to fight with people, so we're going to move it up on the screen just to make it easy to work by doing G and Z to make sure it stays in the same place but just goes up vertically. And we're going to make it a bit smaller along the Y axis, so we press S and Y and we just drag it into position. This is kind of cool. It looks more like a sword, more like a Final Fantasy Berserk kind of like flat blade, something for visual effect, but that'd be really heavy to swing and doesn't really have a point. So I'm a traditional kind of guy, so let's make it have a point. You can go to object mode at the top left hand there, or you can just press tab and that will flick between object mode or edit mode depending on what you want to choose, right? So we're going to go to the vertexes here, and that's the little dots that you see on the corners, and we're going to add some more. Now we're going to add some more edges by adding in some loop cuts. You do that by pressing Control R, and if you click along an edge, it will allow you to put another one. Now if you left click, you can also right click straight afterwards just to lock it in place, otherwise it does move along. And I'm going to select the edge, so I need to go to the cube there with the little line. I need to select that edge at the top there, and that's going to mean I only access that bit. I'm going to go to a front view and press G, Z, and that's going to let me drag it up. So I'm only dragging that edge up, which creates a point, right? It looks a bit more swordy. Now, even though it does look a bit more swordy, it's not really got those sharp defined edges. So let's change that now. We're going to select the faces. When you're doing this, you're only selecting one side, so you need to spin it around to select the other sides as well. Otherwise you're going to have to do this twice and it's not going to match up, and that would just be really infuriating and more time costly. So we're going to insert some faces by doing Shift I or just clicking the button there. You can see that circle, you can just drag that in. That was me checking that I'd said the right thing. You're going to drag it in. Now it does it to the center, right? Now this is a bit annoying because it means that it's not matching up at the bottom. Like you got this big bit at the bottom and at the bottom and the top. So we're going to change it by pressing G and Z to lift it up, and that's lifted it up on both sides. Now we got to fix the bottom bit, right? Because as you can see, like I don't really like the fact that the edges are there. So it's a really easy thing to fix. We're just going to select the edges, And we're going to do this by making sure that we got the edge box selected, and we're going to make it see-through. This is so we can grab both sides at the same time, make it easy for ourselves. So we're going to drag select one side of that line and then the other side by pressing shift and drag selecting again. When we got both of it, we're going to go to the front view. We're going to press G and then Z to keep it locked under that Z axis and just drag it down. The fact is at the bottom, it's showing a little bit, doesn't matter. It's going to be covered by the hilt and we don't need to worry. So that's pretty much our sword, right? But it doesn't show any of that when you go to object mode, which is a bit frustrating, but also it's not really adding any sharpness to the edge of the blade. So you do loop cut. Oh, I think I added it by accident. Yeah, I think I added it by accident. Let's Z, Control Z to undo that. Gonna add the loop cut at the bottom there. And that's going to mean the edge of the blade has a loop cut now. Now with that there, we're going to just click back to the mouse, the cursor button, and we need to select the edges more, okay? Because whilst we've got the line there, it doesn't really like make it sharper. So as we zoom in, we're just going to select the 3 dots at the top, the 3 vertices. We're going to press Control M, Control M, and then we're going to do at center. So this merges at the center and it just creates that really sharp line by joining those edges. And when you see, once we've done all of them, you're going to be able to see that even in object mode now, it looks like we have an actual sword. See? So now you can see the light reflecting on in different places, and we've actually changed the structure of it. So it's not just that flat rectangle anymore. But what to do now? So we need to add another mesh, and we're going to do that. It's going to be massive, so we need to shrink it down straight away. So we're going to select a cube and we're just going to press S and then drag it down. This is going to be the hilt of the sword. So whilst it's a cube, just to go through this, if you change that red dotted circle there, Control S is going to allow you to reset that. If you can go back to Cursed World Origin, if you ever move that by accident, that's how you set it up. And it just means that when you bring new stuff in, like new meshes, it will reset to the original place, which is really helpful if you want things like this, where it all has to be in line. So back to the hilt. We're going to make it longer by pressing size and X, which that means you drag it out on the X axis. And then we can do the same thing on the Y axis, so S and Y. And that's going to mean that we can adjust it. So it's just a bit more in relation to the sword, just it looks a bit better, right? I think that will do. We're going to select them all and move them up a bit with a G and a Z. So we're going to grab it and we're going to lift it up on the Z axis. Oh, this is quite important actually. So when we move stuff, it changes the scale. So we want to reset that scale quite regularly. Just to make sure it's all at once, right? We do that by pressing Control A and selecting scale, and it just rescales it. If you want to like remesh and stuff and sculpt, it's just really helpful to have this at 1. That's all it's really for. Yeah, so now we need to add the handle. Again, it's going to be massive, so just zoom out, then change the size, and you can zoom back in. Using the middle button to scroll in and out is the way to do that. Now we're going to make the handle bigger, SZ, and you can see it's too big, right? So it's too big on the Y axis, so we're just going to change that as well. So SY, adjust it to where you want it to go. I think that's in the right angle. It might be a bit too big. Yeah, I think it's too big. So we're just going to adjust it a little bit more just for looks wise. I quite like it. The handle's a bit long, but it looks like a double-handed sword, or just held by a real badass. Gonna rescale it just to make sure it's the right scale. Control A and then just scale. Yeah, so that's all done. Now if we want to move this around, like, it's a bit annoying because you're gonna have to grab all of them and that's just long. So if you select them all and press Control P, that's gonna bring up a parent. Now we can parent to an object, and it means now if we grab that object, it just moves that one. The best thing about this is that actually there's still 3 separate objects. They're just held together with like, let's say it's more like sticky tape than glue, so we can still edit them. It's really important for this bit because we're gonna go into adding some materials. So at the top right here, you can change the view. I used that one just because that's the one that's used a lot of the time. It just adds light without having to add an actual light into the scene. You can choose it by clicking that drop down, clicking on that, and then selecting whichever one you want. But yeah, it's really up to you. It's personal preference, right? Select the sword and go to that red ball and go to new to add a new material. Now we're going to choose a sword color. I'm guessing a bluey gray for a sword. Yeah. And we're going to increase the metallic value because we all know that the sword blade there is going to be metal. So let's add that. It adds a little gloss look, a little bit shiny. And adding changing the roughness will, the less rough it is, the more it's going to reflect. So you don't want to go all the way because it would be quite dark like this without the light set up. So I've just done it like this just to make it look right. You can adjust it however you like. There's no right and wrong here. It's just preference. Like, it's really just adding some new material. So we're going to do the hilt. You can select the one you've made already by that little drop down, or you can change it. And we're going to change it because it's a different color. So goldy, brass, bronzy. Let's go for something like this. Add the metallic. And then change the roughness. That looks about right. Certain lights catching it, certain lights not. Yeah, that's fine. And we've got one more to do, and that's going to be for the handle. Now I want a purple handle. Purple is my favorite color. I couldn't choose between red and blue, so I went for purple. Bit of a darker purple, and I think that's about it. We're not going to change the metallic because it's not metallic, so we don't want it to be that shiny. I'm going to make it a bit rougher, so it's a bit of a plain color. And that's basically like our sword. It's quite a simple sword. Like, it's all movable, and to start off with Blender, it's like an easy thing to get going with. I'm going to make more complicated swords and show different techniques and stuff as I go along, and you can follow me along my journey. And please check out the next video. Thanks.